Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Books and Buds. I'm going to be doing something a little different today. Normally, I discuss fiction novels that you might not have heard of, and I try to give a little bit of publicity to them. Hopefully, you guys are hearing some new books or some new artists that you haven't heard of before, and can give them a chance because I don't want to see books go onto the wayside as the internet continues to thrive. But I never ever discuss books, nonfiction books. So, a woman uh, who writes for the same company I do, Rhetoric Askew Publishing, whose website will be linked in the description below, asked me if I could please read and review her book. And I didn't want to at first because I'm just not a big fan of nonfiction. Usually, when I do read nonfiction, it's about people I like, either historical or people who've made something of their lives, made a change in the world, positive change, I should say. I enjoy reading anything that's writing related since I'm a writer myself. Again, I write for Rhetoric Askew Publishing, and that link will be in the description below. But her and I are friends on many social media sites, and I decided, you know what, I'm gonna look into it anyways, just so I can see more of what she's talking about because she's pretty involved in this community. She's a whistleblower. She used to work for the Department of Corrections in Missouri State, and she had a pretty interesting story to tell. I just wanted to see. I gave it a shot. I gave it a shot just to see where it went, and I ended up continuing to read. I didn't read it all in once, 1 week or anything. I split it up over the course of a few months because it's just nonfiction. It doesn't hold my interest as long as a fiction book. I want to see where the story's going. But there was a few things I fact checked on here. There was one incident that she mentioned in the novel about a prison officer. He cheated on his wife with one of the female inmates, and he ended up having a baby with her. So, if that's not bad enough, I mean, he pretty much forced his wife to take in the child. So all this is pretty horrible. But then the author, Caroline Grammatical, was discussing turning on the television because one of her friends pointed out, hey, this particular guard is on the news. He was involved in a high-speed police chase. Well, it turns out that this woman was released from prison, had a new boyfriend, and they wanted to fight for custody of her baby. So apparently this guard ended up losing his marbles and killed both her and the new boyfriend. So, I mean, I had to fact check this myself just to see if it was true, because it's just one of those crazy things, you know what I'm saying? And I kind of went down a little bit of a rabbit hole, and just in the state of Missouri alone, some of the things that go on. I mean, I discovered a nurse who murdered her husband, and she was having a relationship with one of the inmates in the prison she worked in, and just the nonsense that goes on that was not even spoken of in this book. I was like, you know what, I can just keep going and going and going. But I mean, honestly, this kind of stuff, it doesn't really surprise me. You see stuff going on at big levels, little levels, wherever there's human beings, there's going to be corruption. It's just the way it is. So, I mean, you just got to do what you can to deal with the world that we live in, with the cards we're handed, wherever we work. So, this woman, Caroline Grammatical, she went to this prison to work as in the education department. She's a teacher by trade. So she figured that she could be of use. She needed a job. She figured she could be useful in the Department of Corrections, maybe helping to educate and rehabilitate some of these prisoners. And I agree with that. I agree with rehabilitation and get these guys back on their feet because a lot of these people have drug issues and they're not really hurting many people other than themselves. They're not in there for rape or for murder or anything horrifying like that. They just made some mistakes in life and everyone deserves a second chance. So I believe in rehabilitation. I believe in education. I believe in second chances. So she went over there and she worked there for a little while. And a lot of this book, I'll be completely honest with you guys, is mostly stuff that you would see in any workplace. I mean, I've had many jobs. And every single job I've ever had, there's workplace politics that are just going to drive you nuts. There's employees you're not going to get along with. There's supervisors that you just flat out disagree with that aren't doing their jobs. They're taking advantage of their positions. It's just workplace politics. So there was a lot of parts in this book that I will admit to have kind of skimmed over a little quicker just to get to the beefier parts of this tale. Because the book is called Inside the Death Fences, and it's the memoir of a whistleblower. So I wanted to get to the whistleblowing parts of this book. So there was a few of them. Like I said, one of them involved this police I'm sorry, not this police officer, but this prison guard who may have raped, may have had a relationship with this woman, had a baby with her, ended up killing her and her new boyfriend. And I just feel bad for both families involved over this. One Looney Tune who just should not have been working in the system. He obviously had some severe megalomaniac and egotistical and just a toxic person. Shouldn't have been that kind of an environment. Another one that stuck out was this one gentleman. He was up for parole, and I guess part of his parole depended on his review from the education department. His teacher happened to be the author of this book, Inside the Death Fences, Caroline Grammatico. And she wrote a raving review about him. She was just very happy with how he'd done in the program and how successful he was as a student. Well, there was another woman involved, her higher up, who, to be spiteful, now this is all inside the book, what Caroline says, take it as a grain of salt, do your own research on it and make your own opinion, read the book yourself. But according to Caroline, it was a spiteful thing that her supervisor did, and she ended up writing up a different report that claimed that this guy didn't do everything he said. And as a result, he lost his parole, and he had to serve an additional 3 years. So if this is true, I mean, that's just disgusting, using these people as pawns. Because if he was up for parole, it tells me that what he did was just a simple mistake. He was a decent person that made a bad decision. He went to prison, did the best he could, rehabilitated himself. He gave his time back to society, he paid his debt. And now he's getting punished by somebody else for something that didn't even involve him. It was inter-office politics. So that's just dreadful, the kind of things that go on inside these places. But like I said, it goes on everywhere. But in a prison system, you're dealing with something completely different. It's a little more tense, and there is people's lives at stake. And according to this woman, one of the at the graduation ceremony, none of the higher ups even showed up to congratulate any of the people who graduated. So that goes to show how little they care. I get it. I mean, after a while, if you work at a chocolate factory, at first it might be exciting. You get to eat all the chocolate you want, but I'm sure after a month or two, it's just chocolate. It's just part of the job. So I wonder if that's how it's like in the prison system. These prisoners, these inmates, maybe they're just part of the job. You don't even look at them as human anymore. I don't know. Horrible attitude to have if that's the kind of job you want to go into. But again, wherever you see humans, you see corruption. I mean, human beings are just that. There's good cops, there's bad cops, there's good prison guards, there's bad prison guards. It's like everything else in life. But unfortunately, I believe there's mostly good out there. So for all these cops, prison guards, doing everything they can to do the job right and to uphold the law, there's this one yahoo that does something stupid, and unfortunately that one mistake ends up representing the whole group as a whole. So it's terrible because, I've been kind of a gym rat for half my life now. For like 21, 22 years, I've been working out regularly. And if you work out regularly, you're going to bump into cops, you're going to bump into prison guards, because they have to stay in shape. It's part of their gig. They have to be in shape because they have a tough job. And a lot of them are fantastic people, guys. They really are. So don't let a couple of bad apples definitely sway your opinion towards the negative, It's just the way it is. There's bad people in every race. There's bad people in every religion. There's bad women. There's bad men. But there's more good than bad out there. That's just my personal opinion. So while this woman is teaching these inmates and trying to help them out so they can rejoin society and better educated with a little more knowledge, she ends up getting one of this a student helper, an assistant named Keith. And right away you you get the idea something's going to happen with this gentleman, Keith. Now, I have a little more of inside knowledge of the situation because I'm friends with her, like I said, on a lot of social media pages. Like, we're friends on Facebook. We follow each other on Twitter, on Instagram. So I happen to know how her relationship with this inmate, Keith, has developed over the years. And it's quite the happy ending, actually. These two end up falling in love, and it's lovely. And but together, they kind of tried tackling some of the issues that took place. Like the warden, for instance, he had a favorite inmate that he allowed special privileges to, and he was kind of being a little bullying in the educational department. And no matter how many times Caroline or Keith would try to do something about it or say something to one of the higher-ups, the warden would just not do anything about it. This guy was able to get away with whatever he wanted. So I'm reading this book like, who cares? Everyone has favorites, you just got to deal with it. It's the boss, He likes this guy. That's his business. Just deal with it the best you can, just like any other workplace. But then towards the end of the book, we discover he's getting all these special privileges because somehow drugs are getting into the prison. And they're getting into the prison through the warden. So the warden is using this inmate and giving him special privileges to walk around when everyone else is in for the night, because he was going from cell to cell selling the drugs that the warden was bringing into the prison. Again, this is all under investigation from the end of the book. I don't know what's come of it since then, but, just read the book for yourself and make your own conclusions. I don't doubt it. I just don't doubt it. How else are these drugs getting into prison? I mean, if you're a visitor going to visit a family member, you get searched. You get searched fairly thoroughly. You have to go through metal detectors and there's surveillance cameras and everything else like that. It's going to be pretty hard to bring some drugs into the prison. They check the stuff you bring in there for inmates. If you bring in a candy bar, if you bring in a little bag of goodies, they're going to go through it and make sure that it's actually a candy bar. It's actually a little bag full of goodies. They're not just going to let you bring drugs in there. So it's getting in there somehow. It's not from the other inmates. It's not from the families. It's generally from someone who's been corrupted. And this is just a fact. I mean, reading a lot of this book, it wasn't a surprise. Because like I said at the beginning of this video, where there is humans, there's going to be corruption. So, I don't know, good for her for speaking up. Good for him for speaking up. They ended up bringing a lot of things to the light in the state of Missouri. It's just interesting to see what the tax dollars are going towards. They're going towards some pretty bad things sometimes. However, with that said, I mean, we can't just allow criminals to run in the streets. We do have to put them somewhere so they can serve their sentences. So it's important that we do pay our tax. But, I mean, Jesus, sometimes these criminals are the people running the show, whether it be a politician or a judge or, sometimes a corrupt police officer or corrupt prison guard or a warden. It happens. It happens. And it's tough to think that your tax dollars are funding these activities. But, there's just bad people everywhere. Bad people in every situation. Every family's got a bad person in it. I mean, you just never know what the hell's going on behind closed doors. But like I said, it's generally, I think the good outweighs the bad in most situations. So take this book with a grain of salt. Read it for yourself. Let me know your opinion in the comments below, what you think about it. But all I'm trying to say is just don't let a few bad apples destroy the reputation of the whole. There's a lot of great prison guards out there, a lot of great police officers. And I know it's very hard to believe it, but I'm sure there's a lot of politicians out there who actually care about the people and take their votes seriously and try to do what's best. You just get a few yahoos out there that ruin the reputation for everybody. With that said, guys, I will leave a link to Caroline's book in the description below. I will also be leaving that link to Ready to Rescue Publishing in the description below. You guys could have clicked on a number of book review channels. For some reason, you chose to click on mine. I appreciate the hell out of you for it. We'll check you guys out next time. Thanks for staying with us. Stay cool.